Kyren Williams is back from IR. He's making his debut game this week, and we're wondering what the snap count is going to be like. How many touches is he going to get? We watched some press conferences from Sean McVay just the other day, but we had another one from him come up yesterday. We're going to go over those. We're going to go back over the data. We're going to go back over the press conference from a few days ago, hammer this home, try to project what we're getting on Sunday from Kyren Williams. But before we do all of this, you need to click that subscribe button right now. Tap it with the finger on your phone. Click it with the mouse on the computer. We deep dive the waiver wire every single day. Whenever an instance like this happens where there's a lot of ambiguity, we'll cover that topic, that player, that situation throughout the week. Try to hammer it home so you make that decision for yourself, so you have that information. If we find it, we share it here. We help you set your lineups. We help you with your drafts. I'm going to be a big resource for your drafts in August. You're going to want to click that button now so you do not miss out on this channel when it comes to getting ready for your drafts. So hit that subscribe button. Stop missing out. But let's dig in. Let's look at what Sean McVay has to say. We're going to be covering this right now. Listen to what he says about the potential snap count, his usage for Kyren Williams.
You know, I think we want to be able to give him a good workload, but I think that was something that we had identified. Even it was unfortunate that he got hurt, but I think you do want to be cognizant of, that's a lot of snaps, especially for what that position entails and the physical nature at which he plays, some of the things that we were asking of him. So exactly what that balance looks like, you want to be able to ride the hot hand. You want to make sure that you're able to get him in the flow of the game. But 95% is something that we definitely want to be mindful of, taking some snaps off him.
All right, so he gave us a ton of information there. He mentioned riding the hot hand. He mentioned about Kyren Williams' workload prior to the injury and how that was a lot, pretty much, and how maybe taking some of that off might allow him to be more effective, less of an injury risk, which makes sense. He was getting a ton of touches. Also, he mentioned the hot hand, where that goes either way. If he's rolling hot and they're in a tight matchup, they're going to keep him out there. That rolls the other way. They're just not going to play the snap percentages just because you hit a certain number. It rolls either way. And also, if you're watching his body language as he's thinking it through, he's thought through this, but he has not came across his decisions yet. It sounds like they want him to get a good workload. He mentioned that. He mentioned that prior. They want him to get touches and opportunities, and everything else with that it's game time dependent, scenario dependent, series dependent, play dependent, and how the plays are ran. However, if Kyren Williams is running hot, the game is tight. From what I read here, he's going to be on the field. Of course, Royce Freeman could be a meat shield here. Probably should be for a little bit, at least for the short yardage and goal line work. And like I said before, there could be a series where Freeman's out there a little bit longer than expected because he was hot on a couple plays and they just kept him out there. And you look at the snaps and you're wondering why, and it doesn't make sense. But you go back to watching game and it totally does in those moments. But still, they're looking to get Kyren Williams on the field, get him some snaps. Looking at his snaps by week, 53, 76, 55, 59, 47, 47 by game. So he's out there for a good clip. And then his opportunities, targets and touches, 17, 24, 17, 28, 15, and 20. Not horrible. Pretty good for a stud running back. Pretty good for a running back that you want to have as a 1A or an RB1 on your team. You want him to get that many touches. That Indy game with 28 is kind of high for a guy like him, for a guy who's on the lower spectrum of weight here at the 200-pound-ish mark, 200 to 205 range. 24 in week 2. It's okay, a little high, but still, you expect that in some of these matchups. You expect him to get some work, especially when he's running hot. And in the other games, 15's not bad, 17's not bad, 20's okay. 20's okay. He was rolling hot against the Cardinals. And then going over this last press conference, we talked about this one prior in the other video, but I just want to go over it again, just in case you haven't heard it before. That way you can analyze what Sean McVay's talking about.
Yes, he'll be full. He looked like he was full speed in the walkthrough just now, so he's feeling good. He's excited to be back. We're glad to have him back.
Is there anything? I mean, you kind of if he's coming off IR, I know he's ready, but do you kind of have to do anything to kind of ease him back in, or is it just so?
I think you want to be smart about it. I think you want to be able to try to simulate some drills, without the risk of injury, to be able to just get him back to some of the things that, are going to occur on Sunday. And, you can't ever truly simulate those things, Gary, but it wasn't like it was too long ago. You certainly don't take anything for granted, but if he's feeling good, we want him to be able to have a normal workload. And I know he's excited to be back, and his teammates are excited to have him.
So one thing I'm noticing here with back-to-back press conferences, whenever he's between thoughts, he looks down to think about what he's talking about. And right initially, in the beginning of this press conference with his answer, looked the reporter right in the eye and straight said it, that he was in practice, he's looking good, they want to see what's under the hood. That's my words, under the hood. They want to see what's going on with Kyren Williams and determine the workload from there. And like I've been saying, probably going to be in game. When we're looking at his mannerisms here, how he was pretty quick, pretty concise, pretty direct, seems pretty excited to have him back. He's not going to reveal his hands. He's not going to show you the cards. He's not going to do that. That's why coach speak is hard to think about, because they don't have to tell you anything. He's not revealing his hand, and he's also earlier in the week at this moment. So honestly, he does need to see more work out of him, see what he can handle, what he's got out of Kyren Williams before we get into game time, where the video prior that we talked about was yesterday. But here, he's pretty direct. He was pretty quick. Seemed like he was a little bit excited to have him back. He was pretty energized when he got that question. I felt that. I felt the energy from him. And it looks like he's looking to get Kyren Williams touches. And he wants to really moderate that a little bit. He wants to make sure, though, he gets the ball in his hand. He's out there for snaps. He's a key cog in this offense. That's what I'm reading from Sean McVay. Looking from the Coach Speak Twitter, he's got a 75% hit rate when it comes to usage rate on these players when he talks about them, and I could see that. I could definitely see that being in game, to where Royce Freeman does have a good series. He keeps rolling and he gets a little bit more snaps than expected. I could see that's how we get to the 25%. Royce Freeman gets some goal line work. That could get us to that 25%. But overall, I think they really want Kyren Williams out there. They want him in the passing game. He's very good in the passing game. He's a good pass blocker. And then on top of that, you can wheel him out there in the flat, have him catch some balls, which makes him a very dynamic asset in the passing game. Looking at his production here, 17 fantasy points in week 1, 28 against the 49ers. Dude had 10 targets in that game. When the game script doesn't go towards the run, you can wheel him out there in the pass and use him in pass pro. He's very concealed out there as well, which allows him to be very dynamic in the passing game, which is great. And then against Indy, 27 fantasy points, and in Arizona, he went off again. That's something to note, because he's playing Arizona this week. And then another way to look at his production, we have 4 RB1 games out of 6. 4 out of 6, that's a good mark. We have a lot of upside, and again, these are game script dependent. These are play dependent, touchdown dependent, receiving game dependent. Again, he's a good running back. He's good in the NFL. He was like RB4 during this time, and he was very productive. And again, when we look at his draft profile, how he fell in the draft, how he didn't do well at the combine, it left a sour note for a lot of people. But when you think about his intangibles, how he's good in pass protection, how he's good at manipulating and feeling the momentum of the defenders around him to make his decisions, how he's good at catching the ball out of the backfield, he's a breath of fresh air for this team. Talking about him last year a lot, I compared him from a macro sense to like a James White or a Theo Riddick, like a running back who is a money ball play in fantasy, where he's used a lot in the passing game, catching balls out of the backfield, and he's going to slowly eat up fantasy points, which is what he's doing, but he did it to a much bigger degree earlier this season. He didn't fire last year. I talked about him a lot last year in that You Need series, but he fired this year, and it's due to him just being stout on the fundamentals. And he's very fundamental. He's very good on those finer nuances. And then you look at the opportunity shares with these Rams running backs. Kyren Williams is that guy, though. 33% opportunity share. Say this does dial back. How far do you think they're really going to dial this back? 25%? I think that'd be on the low end. I think 28 to 30 is probably what we're looking at. Maybe 33 to 35, though. Maybe. Darrell Henderson's back on the practice squad. Royce Freeman might usurp some goal line touches. That might happen. That could be a case for us to look at. But I look for Kyren Williams to be used in the passing game, to be used in those tough matchups, especially when they got to throw the ball a little bit more, because you can use him in pass protection. He's good there. And you can wheel him out there in the flat. He's very dynamic. The fact that you can run him between the tackles too for a good clip, that's a good thing on his resume. I look for him to be used. I don't have any real questions about it. I could see a little bit of vulture from Royce Freeman, but not too much. You got to start him against Arizona, and I'm not saying he's going to hit. It's just that matchup. And then you look at the Browns game where it looks like a bad matchup, but we saw what he did against the 49ers, and you just use him more in the passing game. Give him some of those short targets and dink and dunk against those tougher defenses, the Browns and the Ravens. So he's a running back that even against those tough matchups where you don't like it, and you know he's going to have some duds in between here because that's just how fantasy football works. But you start him and you just hope for the best because those tough matchups, Browns, Baltimore, New Orleans, the slower matchups, because you never know what's going to happen because how well he's using the passing game, how many targets he can get. But going back to this Cardinals matchup, because a lot of you guys have questions about that, I think a lot of you guys are going to fire him up either way. I don't think you guys are going to question too much because the Cardinals, third worst in the NFL at providing fantasy points to running backs, 26.8 per game. Over 1,000 yards rushing, over 1,200 yards rushing to be exact, 11 touchdowns. They're also catching balls on them. Pretty much running backs are scoring at will. Week 1, Brian Robinson scored 13 fantasy points, and then in Week 2, Saquon went off. Week 4, Christian McCaffrey almost hung 50 points on them. Then Joe Mixon got 13.4. Kyren posted 21.8, almost 160 yards. Went off in that game. 13.1 by Kenneth Walker. 29.4 by Gus Edwards. Remember that matchup when Gus Edwards went off and everybody thought Keaton Mitchell was never going to get that workload. 12.7 by Jerome Ford. 17.6 by Bijan Robinson. So running back score fantasy points on this team. The running back that's getting the touches gets the opportunity to score those, and that makes sense. We're not seeing the ancillary running backs really hitting too much, but honestly, Royce Freeman could sneak something in the end zone in this matchup. We could definitely see that happen. But again, if you're going to start Kyren Williams, it's going to be in this matchup due to this defense being soft against running backs. You need him because you already have him. You've been waiting for him to come back. He was a top 5 running back when he was out there in the first 6 games of the season. Now you finally get him back. So you're probably going to start him anyway. So you're just looking for this confirmation bias. You're looking for the news here about whether or not he's getting snaps this week, or if the rug is going to get pulled from under us. I don't know. I'm going to say that. But just gauging the tea leaves here, I feel pretty confident he's going to get touches. He's going to get a good opportunity share. He's going to be in there on a lot of snaps. I feel very confident from what I saw from Sean McVay. I feel pretty confident that the Rams are looking forward to him being back in this offense, that they want him back as a key contributor in this team. So I think Kyren Williams is probably going to be good to go this week. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.